Hey everyone! Today we're talking about one of the longest and hardest battles in medieval Europe, the Saxon Wars. This series of wars went on for over 30 years, from 772 to 804, and was led by Charlemagne, the powerful Frankish king. He wanted to take control of Saxony and force the Saxons to follow Christianity. But the Saxons weren't going to give in without a fight, and they fiercely defended their homeland and their beliefs. The conflict started when the Saxons destroyed a church in Deventer, which is now part of the Netherlands. The Saxons were furious because Christian missionaries had been trying to convert their people and change their traditions. This church in Deventer had been founded around 768 by a missionary named Irminsul, whose mission was to bring Christianity to the people of Utrecht and the surrounding regions. To the Saxons, this missionary work felt like an attack on their way of life. They saw their traditions and beliefs as part of their identity, so they pushed back by joining forces with other groups who opposed the Franks. Now this wasn't the first time the Franks had clashed with the Saxons. Before Charlemagne, other Frankish leaders like Charles Martel and Pepin the Short had also tried to defeat the Saxons but failed. Charlemagne, however, was determined to finish what they had started. He turned the conflict into a religious war, a crusade, with the goal of forcing the Saxons to convert to Christianity. The fighting was brutal and costly, with thousands of lives lost over the years. In 804, Charlemagne finally claimed victory by deporting about 10,000 Saxons to Neustria, a region in present-day France. He then moved Frankish settlers into Saxony to secure control. Even after this, Saxon culture still had some influence in the region, but their old traditions slowly disappeared as they blended with Frankish society. So, who exactly were the Saxons? The Saxons were a Germanic people who lived in what is now northern Germany. They had been there since before the 4th century and built their own territories called Angria, Eastphalia, and Westphalia, which together formed Saxony. The first time the Saxons are mentioned in history was in 356, when they were described as pirates attacking coastal regions in Gaul and Britannia. They followed Germanic paganism, but because they relied on oral traditions instead of writing things down, much of what they believed is still a mystery. One of the most important symbols in their religion was the Irminsul, a sacred pillar that was deeply significant to their faith and culture. Some believe it looked like a tree, similar to the world tree Yggdrasil from Norse mythology, which was thought to connect all the realms of existence. The Saxons held important gatherings and ceremonies around the Irminsul, making it a powerful cultural and spiritual symbol. Unlike the Franks, the Saxons didn't have a single king or centralized government. Instead, they held assemblies where members of different social classes, nobles, freemen, and even lower classes, could voice their opinions on legal, political, and military matters. This system gave the Saxons a strong sense of independence and unity, which is one of the reasons they resisted the Franks so fiercely. Since their religious beliefs were so closely tied to their culture, they viewed Christian missionaries as a threat not just to their faith, but to their way of life. According to Frankish records, the Saxons believed these missionaries were sent by evil spirits trying to break their communities apart by replacing their old traditions with unfamiliar customs. Because of this, they refused to accept Christianity and fought back against the Franks' attempts to control them. When Charlemagne became king alongside his brother Carloman, after their father Pepin the Short died, things started to heat up. Carloman preferred to handle conflicts with diplomacy, but Charlemagne believed war was the better solution. When Carloman died in 771, Charlemagne took full control of the Frankish kingdom. He was a strong supporter of the church, and although he knew the donation of Constantine, a document claiming that the church had ultimate power, was fake, he still acted as a powerful defender of Christianity. Charlemagne believed that spreading Christianity would unite his kingdom, so he often used military force to pressure people into converting. One of Charlemagne's trusted advisors, Alcuin of York, tried to convince him that forcing people to become Christians wasn't the right way. True faith, he argued, had to come from the heart. But Charlemagne didn't listen. His first major move against the Saxons came in 772, when he attacked Eresburg, one of their strongholds. He destroyed the Irminsul, which was a major blow to the Saxons' faith, and seized the treasure stored at the site. And after the Saxons destroyed the church at Deventer in 772, Charlemagne claimed that attacking them was justified. But in reality, this was part of a bigger plan. Even if the Deventer church hadn't been damaged, Charlemagne probably would have found another excuse to invade. That same year, Charlemagne attacked Eresburg, an important Saxon stronghold. There he destroyed the Irminsul, a sacred Saxon symbol that represented life and the universe. By doing this, Charlemagne hoped to crush the Saxon spirits. He also took treasure from the shrine and killed many locals. To keep the remaining Saxons in check, he took some hostages before heading back home, thinking the fighting was over. But the Saxons weren't done yet. While Charlemagne was off conquering the Lombards in 774, the Saxons fought back. They destroyed Eresburg and attacked a monastery to get revenge for the destruction of the Irminsul. Charlemagne had to return in 775 to defeat them again. This time he set up forts to help keep control. One of the most important Saxon leaders was Vidukind. He played a big role in resisting Charlemagne. After another Saxon rebellion in 776, Charlemagne tried to stop it, but Widukind escaped to Denmark. There he worked with King Siegfried to provide Saxons with a safe place to hide. This allowed the Saxons to keep resisting despite Charlemagne's ongoing attacks. In 777, Charlemagne tried to take control by calling a meeting in Paderborn. He told Saxon leaders they had to follow him and convert to Christianity. Vidukind refused to attend, continuing to encourage rebellion. By 779, Charlemagne had to return once again to crush Saxon uprisings. It wasn't just the Saxons' bravery that made them tough opponents. Their lands were swampy and hard to cross. Plus, unlike the Franks who had a king, the Saxons relied on family groups spread across small villages. This made it harder for Charlemagne to control them since there wasn't just one leader to defeat. In 782, Widukind led another uprising where churches were burned, and Frankish settlements were attacked. Charlemagne reacted with extreme cruelty in what became known as the Massacre of Verden. Around 4,500 Saxons were killed in this grim act, showing how determined Charlemagne was to end the conflict. Afterward, he created new laws that banned traditional Saxon beliefs. Anyone caught practicing them could be put to death. This harsh move caused more anger, but Charlemagne believed it would force people to convert to Christianity. Later on, Charlemagne realized this harsh approach wasn't working. By 797, he removed the death penalty for following Saxon traditions and introduced fairer laws in 802-803. Still, some Saxons kept resisting. Charlemagne responded by ordering the forced removal of around 10,000 Saxons to Neustria. He then moved Frankish settlers into Saxony to weaken the Saxon way of life and stop further uprisings. By 804, Charlemagne had finally defeated the Saxons. Although some Saxon traditions survived, their way of life had changed forever. Their unique social system faded away, and their customs mixed with Frankish culture. Despite their long and determined fight, the Saxons couldn't stop Charlemagne's growing empire.